Hi everyone. Now I know I've made a few tribute videos lately to a few people who have sadly passed away in the film industry. Unfortunately, there's been a few more. So in this video, I do just want to say a few words about three films in particular from the director, Peter Watkins, who just died at the age of 90 at the end of October. Now, Peter Watkins was just 28 when he made the film Culloden for the BBC. Really fascinating film this. So about the last arranged battle on British soil in 1746 in Culloden. And what Peter Watkins chose to do here was to do a reenactment of that battle, but do it in the way as if there was actually a documentary crew present who were then able to comment on the actual battle itself and interview various participants. Really fascinating style. Now, when it comes to history, when I did history at school, I had two different history teachers. One was very much of the style of open your textbook, read page 100, get on with it. The other teacher that we had was certainly into doing reenactments, but that was because he was a teacher who also taught rugby. And so whenever we did reenactments of various battles, it involved a rugby ball. So if you want me to now talk in any kind of serious detail about the Battle of Culloden, I am not the person to do it. But what I will say is I wish I had seen this when I was at school, because Peter Watkins really takes a fascinating look at this battle and looks at it from various angles, looking at the kinds of leadership decisions that were made, the senselessness of the locations that was used, obviously the lives that were lost. And also it's relevant that he was making this film at a time when there were tensions in Vietnam. So it's not just that he was doing a historical film on a 1746 battle just for the sake of it. Now, following on from Culloden, Peter Watkins made another film for the BBC in 1966, only 49 minutes long, absolutely devastating film, and this was The War Game. Now, possibly if you're my age, then you remember growing up in the 80s and watching the chilling movie Threads, directed by Mick Jackson, or if you're in America, then maybe you remember watching The Day After. Maybe even now you watch Netflix and you're watching Catherine Bigelow's new movie, A House Full of Dynamite. All movies which look at the threat of nuclear war and have some questions to ask about it. Well, Peter Watkins was there first in 1966, following on from the Cuban Missile Crisis, and making this film as if it was a documentary, but imagining a nuclear launch in the southeast of England. The film is absolutely horrific to watch. It really is devastating. It was not actually shown on the BBC. They decided to withhold it for some 20 years. And that was partially because of how they thought audiences might react to it, but also because the film was sort of commenting on the possibility of a nuclear attack coming within the next sort of 10 or 15 years, possibly, because of the continual stockpiling of weapons. But yeah, this film is just incredible to watch, incredibly realistic, and just very, very chilling. Now, it did win the Academy Award in 1966 for Best Documentary Short Film. So kind of a little bit ironic that really, because it kind of blurs the line in being a documentary feature. I mean, yes, it absolutely does use statistical information from accounts of Dresden and Hiroshima, the likes of that, but obviously it is an imagining as well of what may happen or what could have happened in the southeast of England. So yeah, interesting that it was categorized in that way and won that Academy Award. But yes, if you are not familiar with the film, then like I say, this was a film that was withheld for some 20 years. But absolutely, if you get the chance to watch this, you will not forget it. But in 1967, Peter Watkins directed his most commercial feature, and that was this one, Privilege, which starred Paul Jones, the singer from Manfred Mann, who had left by this stage, and also Jean Shrimpton, who was absolutely the top model of the time. Now, this was an interesting time period for movies being made in Britain. Universal Studios had, if you like, set up camp in Britain, and one of the VPs there, Jay Cantor, was involved in the financing of various British movies, hoping to reach international audiences. However, the whole string of movies got approved, but none of them really found commercial success. So Privilege was no different in that respect. But just to put it in context, some of the other movies that were being made and financed by Universal in the UK at that time included a couple with Marlon Brando. One was The Night of the Following Day, and then also A Countess from Hong Kong, which was directed by Charlie Chaplin. There was a couple of movies directed by Joseph Losey, Secret Ceremony with Elizabeth Taylor, and the notorious Boom, which also starred Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. And there was Albert Finney's directorial debut, Charlie Bubbles, and directed by Peter Hall, the stage director, 3 into 2 Won't Go. So those were just some of the movies that were financed during that time period in which they didn't really find commercial audiences. But Privilege really is a fascinating film, definitely worth your time. It is amazing to actually think that it did get made when it did. It's very kind of ahead of itself, if you like. It is a satire, but when most people enjoy a satire, they like to laugh a bit, and really the satire in this is quite seriously done, I would say, and very effective. Now, a lot of people didn't really like Paul Jones and Gene Shrimpton's acting style because they are non-actors, but that was also part of the point in why they were chosen for being in this movie. So what this movie was doing was looking at a musician played by Paul Jones, and looking at how he was accepted by audiences, but really being shaped and moulded by the government, by the media, and also by the church as well, and how all of them interact. And yeah, it really is a fascinating film, and definitely one which probably over time is finding more audiences, even though it wasn't a success at the time. And obviously the time when this movie was made, kind of at the end of the swinging 60s, was a significant time. For example, we had the Beatles and all of their success, all the movies that they were making with Richard Lester, and the fact that they were also announcing to the press that they'd become more popular than Jesus. You had other movies, you had Elvis even, making all of his kind of movies that he didn't really want to make. Cliff Richard in the UK as well, being sort of packaged up. So yeah, it's all a bit of a social commentary on all of that kind of thing. But yeah, absolutely fascinating film, definitely worth seeing. There's probably a bit of irony, I suppose, in doing a social media video talking about Peter Watkins and encouraging you to consume these products, but nonetheless, that's where we're at. So yeah, this Blu-ray is an interesting one. It does have an audio commentary on it by Daniel Kramer, who has done a number of audio commentaries, and he has a close kinship with the director Sidney J. Furie, who, funnily enough, did direct a couple of those Cliff Richard movies that would have come out around this kind of time. But this DVD release is also worth tracking down. It does have a very extensive booklet included, and also a number of additional special features, one of which is a film called Lonely Boy, which was a Canadian film about the singer Paul Anka, and it served as a little bit of an inspiration for this. But yeah, those are the 3 movies I just wanted to briefly touch on. I'm certainly no academic, but yeah, other films that Peter Watkins made, which were considered quite significant ones, are Punishment Park in 1971, and also he did a film on the painter of the Scream, Edvard Munch, in 1974. In more recent years, or into the 80s anyway, he was making really extensive films. So there was a 14.5-hour movie that he did called The Journey, and another movie called La Commune, which was over 5 hours long. So yeah, those ones, pretty little seen. I certainly haven't seen them. But yeah, like I say, those are the 3 particular films I just wanted to focus on. Let me know your thoughts and comments. Thanks very much for watching this video. All the best. Bye-bye.